Okay, so for the activity number 1, we will be talking about the different techniques na ginagamit natin sa laboratory in conducting a lot of experiments, and then you will be acquainted to some laboratory apparatuses. Though I believe in your high school, you have used maybe these apparatuses, pero you need to master it in college since medical course kayo, medtech, you really need to know the different apparatuses and how are we going to use them sa lab. Okay, para hindi kayo magkamali, and we will assure safety both sa students and sa teacher. Pag alam nyo kung ano ang gamit and paano gamitin ang mga apparatuses and how are we going to do the different techniques. So this is the world of chemistry, this is the world of science. So the objectives of this wait lang, admit natin sila. The objectives of this activity are the following. First, we will be defining the different laboratory techniques applied in chemistry. And then we will be identifying and examining the different laboratory apparatus or apparatuses, and we will be determining the use of these apparatuses. So ano ang gagawin ninyo sa activity na ito? The first one is you will be defining the different methods of separation techniques. You can research sa Google or sa internet, or if you have books there sa science or sa chemistry, you may use those references para ma-define natin itong mga methods of separation. And then another thing, you have to describe and illustrate the different equipment used in measuring volume and mass. Later, I'll present to you the table. How are you going to answer this? And then, ayan, describe the different heating techniques of the samples. Define the other methods or techniques in the laboratory, and then discuss also the different functions of common laboratory apparatuses. And then aside from the function, you really have to illustrate these things. So this is handwritten. Itong mga i-illustrate talaga, meaning you really have to draw. So ano yung gagawin ninyo? The first part, we have here the methods of separation of mixtures. So this is how we separate mixtures in the laboratory. We have here the decantation, filtration, centrifugation, extraction using a separatory funnel, sublimation, evaporation, simple distillation, and fractional distillation. So what are you going to do? Mag-research kayo, and then you have to define these methods. So ang gawin nyo, class, either handwritten siya lahat, kopyahin nyo na lang ito, then gawa kayo ng table, or pwede nyo siyang i-print, pwede nyo itong i-print, itong laboratory activity na ito, and then isulat nyo lang yung definition para hindi na kayo gumawa ng table. So pwede niyo siya i-print again, pero handwritten ang answers. So the next part will be measurement of mass and volume. So in this table, we have here the following apparatus na ginagamit in the measurement of mass and volume of chemicals. So ang inyong buhaton, you have to describe the apparatus, and then you have to illustrate it here. Example, analytical balance. I-research nyo sa internet or sa any book kung ano ang mukha ni analytical balance, and you have to draw it here. And then after drawing it here, you have to provide the description of the analytical balance. And so on with the other given na mga apparatus like the triple beam balance. For the measurement of volume, that's the same thing. We still have the listed apparatuses here, and then you just provide the description, and you have to draw how it looks like. So another one na inyong answer. Medyo mahaba itong activity na ito. So I need you to really utilize the time ngayon to start doing this activity. But hindi naman din ngayon ang deadline. Kay murag mabuang taan ni kung karon dayon ipasa sa kadaghan. So sa sunod na, please check the Schoology later kung kano sa ang deadline ani. Kay na-set na nako dito sa Schoology, wala pa lang nako na-publish. And then another thing, heating of samples. So this is how we heat samples inside the laboratory. We are using the Bunsen burner. So all you need to do is to provide the description on how are we going to do the technique. Example, how to light the Bunsen burner. You provide here the steps on how are we going to light the Bunsen burner. And then for the types of flame also, you provide here, ano ba yung mga types of flame natin na produced ng ating Bunsen burner. And then you provide also the description of the different types of flame. Sa ba ang tawag sa kalayo nga gina-produce sa Bunsen burner? Mano siya mong ibutang diri sa mga boxes. And then indirect heating of solids and liquids. Aside from the Bunsen burner, we can also do this. We can use the water bath. So you have to provide the description here on how to use the water bath, how to use the different types of water baths like warm water bath and the boiling water bath or the ice water bath. And then this one also, how are we going to use the following, the ice bath and the steam bath. And then mga miscellaneous methods, you just define these methods on paano na siya ginahimo inside the laboratory like trituration, cork boring, glass bending, tasting and smelling of samples. How are we going to taste and smell the samples, the chemicals inside the laboratory? So you have to research that. Pouring of liquid chemicals. Paano punta mag-transfer, magyabo og mga liquid nato na mga chemicals sa laboratory. Purely definition only. Pag mga siya illustration, that's the time you draw. Just like this one, discuss and illustrate. Example, beaker. Unsay function, unsay gamit ni beaker sa laboratory. And then after providing the functions, you illustrate, meaning you draw. Unsay nawong sa beaker. And so on with the other apparatus. So medyo daghan. So, kailangan magtrabaho jud mo. Ayon ninyo hulata ang deadline kay I believe inyuhang teacher sa anatomy, inyuhang teacher sa uban subjects, daghan pug ipabuhat sa inyo ha. So, para dili magtambak, utilize na lang jud ang time karon. So, kay medyo daghan-daghan jud ang laboratory apparatus nato kay given yun na siya nga daghan kita gamit sa lab. After providing the answers and the illustrations above, you answer the guide question, why is it important to identify the use or function of the apparatus? And then you provide the conclusion. Sa conclusion, I just need you to discuss what you have learned while doing this activity. Sabay inyuhang natun-an while you are making this activity, while you are answering all the questions, unsay ginapangayo, unsay inyuhang natun-an. And then references, kasi syempre mag-research man mo, naaman mo, di ba yung kagaina sa orientation, sa medical world, we always see to it na dili ta mag-plagiarize. So since these things are not our ideas, kailangan nato hatagan og credit where credit is due. So we have to list down the references na gigamit nato in answering the activity. So that's it for your activity. Any question man ninyo buhaton karon? Pag dili ninyo siya mahuman karon, you still have time. Dili pa today ang deadline ani. Questions? So handwritten ni siya ha, picturean lang ninyo. And then how are you going to submit it? Let me open my Schoology first. Ayan. Yung Schoology ko and yung Schoology ninyo, actually, hindi talaga sila magkapareha ang mukha kasi Ang sa inyo, I think, ang makita nyo lang dyan, materials, updates, and conferences. Yung sa akin kasi marami, kasi I'll have your attendance here, and the other things, inyong mga grades, napamanggodere. Pero you can access the activity today under sa materials. You open that prelim na folder, and then I'll be publishing this. Wait lang. Pag na-publish ko siya, a-appear ito sa inyo. Mag-a-appear siya sa inyo. So, ayan, na-publish na siya. Makikita niyo na yung activity number 1. And take note, sabi ko, you utilize the remaining time. It's 10:58, maybe at 11 to 1:30. You can do the activity while eating, while taking your lunch. And then, isubmit nyo lang din siya dyan sa activity number 1 na yan. Kung i-open nyo yan siya class, makakita kayo ng button dyan na submit. Ang gagawin ninyo, since this is handwritten, after ninyo isulat lahat, i-compile nyo siya, picturean ninyo, and ang mga pictures or picture or scanner or yung scanned material, pwede. Any of the two, you have the option whether gamitin nyo lang yung cellphone nyo, picturean nyo as long as mabasa ko, or if meron kayong scanner dyan sa bahay ninyo, then it's okay also na have it scanned. And then pag ma-scan na siya, i-compile niya siya as PDF, meaning ilagay niyo siya sa Word, lahat ng pictures pasunod, tapos i-save niyo siya as PDF and i-submit niyo siya dyan sa activity number 1. Okay? Kaya pag naka-MS Word, manggod siya, mabungkag ang inyong submission. So, muna siya nga i-PDF nato. So, diha lang ninyo siya i-submit sa activity number 1. I hope you opened it. Wala, dili ta parehas og naong manggod kay ang makita lang nako diri sa ako ang mga nakasubmit na. Dili na ko makita ang button ninyo for submission. So, you explore. Open that activity number 1. You can download the copy of the activity mismo din ha. And then you may start doing it now. May questions? Wala? Sige.
Ma'am, okay lang po kahit saan po isulat.
Yeah, you have the option whether to use bond paper, long or short, and yellow paper as long as mabasa na ko siya tarong. Even notebook, basta mabasa lang yun na ko siya tarong. Any clean paper nga naa mo din ha, nga pwede siya i-submit. Okay? Ang format ng references, I'm not strict with the format. You can just write the URL if it is from a website. Diretso na, dili pa ko mag-APA format sa inyo ha. I'm not strict with the format with the references. Anything else? So that you may review it. Basig na ay ma-confuse or something. But anyway, if you have concerns or questions, you may raise your concerns sa group chat natin. Meron naman na, diba? So we have here activity number 1. This is for the laboratory. We will have the basic laboratory techniques and apparatuses. So you will be acquainted with the different methods and techniques that we always use in the laboratory in conducting a lot of experiments. And then you will also be acquainted with the different laboratory apparatuses that we have in the lab. So I believe you are familiar with some of the apparatuses since during high school, I guess nakita nyo na siya, nagamit nyo na sila. Pero there will be a lot of additional laboratory apparatuses that you need to know kasi ginagamit natin siya sa mga activities, not just with the chemistry subject, but even in the anatomy or other higher chem subjects ninyo sa medtech. So kailangan alam nyo kung ano itong mga laboratory apparatus na ito and even the basic laboratory techniques. So this is science, this is chemistry, this is what we are going to do sa inyong laboratory sa chem. So for the objectives of this activity, we have here, first we will be defining the different laboratory techniques applied in chemistry. We'll be describing them one by one. And then we will be identifying and examining the different laboratory apparatuses used in the laboratory. And lastly, aside from identifying them, aside from illustrating them, and knowing how they look, we also have to determine their uses, their functions, so that by the time that we will be allowed to conduct experiment face-to-face sa school, you know them already and you know ano yung function nila, ano ang gamit nila, and how are we going to use them. Okay, so for the procedure, so you will be defining a lot of terms, and then you will be drawing a lot of apparatus. So i-ready ang mga drawing skills karon kasi this is handwritten. Take note, handwritten ito, and doon sa mga part na merong illustration, you really have to draw. Okay? So it's up to you whether you want to add color or not, as long as tama ang nawong sa apparatus na inyong gi-draw. So if you are asked to draw a test tube, so dapat tama siya. It really looks like a test tube whether you colored it or not. Okay? So ito yung aanseran nyo, class. First, the methods of separation of mixtures. Ito kasi yung ating mga techniques na ginagamit sa lab. So first, we have here, how do we separate chemical mixtures in the laboratory? So we have 8 here, from decantation, filtration, centrifugation, extraction using a separatory funnel, sublimation, evaporation, simple and fractional distillation. So all you need to do is define them, describe them. You have to, syempre, research. You can use the internet, or if you have available books there where you can use as reference, pwede niyo siyang gamitin din in defining and describing these methods of separating our chemicals. And then next, we have here measurement of mass and volume. I have given you here examples of laboratory apparatuses that we use in measuring both mass and also volume. So what are you going to do? You research on the description of each apparatus and you have to illustrate it, meaning you really have to draw it. So you can research from the internet how the analytical balance look like, and even the triple beam balance. And then also for the measurement of volume, we have graduated cylinder and the acid and base burette. So again, you have to research how they look like, and you have to research also their description and how are we going to use them. And then we have here heating samples, heating of samples. So in the laboratory, especially in chemistry, a lot of experiments require heating. So the apparatus that we use mostly is the Bunsen burner. So it's very important for you to know how are we going to use the Bunsen burner. So we have the following steps here in a lot of areas that you need to know. You have to research the description of each area, or you can just write there the steps. For example, how to light the burner. You may research and write here in the description the step-by-step method in lighting our Bunsen burner. And then next, you have to measure also, you have to research also the flame, the types of flame being produced by the Bunsen burner. Meron tayong different types of flame na ginagamit sa lab. Okay? And then for the indirect heating of solids and liquids, you just have to write the description and even a summarized procedure in using the water bath for boiling. Then we have different types of water bath here, the warm water bath, boiling water bath, and even ice water bath. And then another thing is we have the ice bath also and the steam bath. So i-describe nyo lang kung paano sila ginagamit during heating. Any questions so far? Clarification? Hindi naintindihan sa activity? Wala? You may raise your questions sa chat if you are unable to turn on your microphone, or if wala kayong microphone, so sa chat na lang. That will be the most convenient thing to do. And then we have here additional methods and techniques that we use in the laboratory. So you just have to describe and define these methods. So we have here trituration, cork boring. How are we going to do this? Cork boring, glass bending, tasting, and smelling of samples. So how do we taste and how do we smell samples in the laboratory? If necessary lang ha, hindi lahat ng chemicals tinitikman. And then pouring of liquid chemicals. And then lastly, We have here a lot of laboratory apparatuses. So you need to draw all of this from the beaker up to the last apparatus that we listed here. You draw here sa illustration and then you provide their functions. For example, beaker. What's the use of beaker in the laboratory? Is it used to contain chemicals or for storage or for mixing? So whatever. You have to research kung ano ba talaga ang gamit ni beaker sa laboratory. And then again, hanapin nyo sa internet anong mukha ni beaker and then you draw it there. And then medyo marami ito. That is the reason why I need to start now so that you will have ample time to finish the activity. So again, marami ito. This is up to 30 chemical, laboratory apparatuses. And then after all the illustrations and the description of different methods, you answer also the guide questions. This is just one, so this is just guide question. So why is it important to identify the use or function of the apparatus? And lastly, you provide your conclusion. For the conclusion, I want to see there your learnings while doing the activity. So what have you learned while you are answering the questions here, while you are researching for the different methods? Ano yung inyong pinaka-na-learn sa activity? And then, since again, we are in the medical world, science, world of science, so as much as possible, we have to avoid plagiarism. So your answers there are actually not your own idea. So you have to give credit where credit is due. So you have to provide the references. But I'm not strict with the format of the references. I'm not asking you to provide the references in APA format. The URL and the author is sufficient na. Okay? Kung galing siya sa website, pero kung galing siya sa book, then you provide the author and the title of the book also. Okay? So again, this is handwritten. You may use any paper, kung ano ang paper na available dyan sa inyo, whether it's a coupon band, a band paper, or a yellow paper, okay lang. Kung notebook, okay lang din as long as mabasa ko siya. Okay? And then, what are you going to do? Pwede din palang i-print ito. Pwede niyo siyang i-print if you have printer there. And then, kahit naka-print siya, yung mga answers niyo kailangan handwritten. So, i-print niyo itong whole thing na ito. And then dito, example sa definition, pwede niyo na siyang isulat. Or kung wala kayong printer, then you write this one. Pwede niyo nang hindi i-write itong first part. Lagyan niyo lang activity 1 and the title and syempre your name. And then pwede na kayo diretso dito sa data and results. So anong gagawin niyo? After writing, you just take a picture of your answer, compile it, i-compile niyo siya, yung mga pictures niyo from 1 until the references na nakapasunod. Ilagay niyo siya sa MS Word, yung mga pictures na nakapasunod. And one picture per page ha, and then you save it as PDF. And then submit nyo siya doon sa Schoology. Okay? I-PDF nyo siya and then i-submit sa Schoology. So bakit gina-PDF? Kasi sa Schoology, pag sinubmit nyo siya ng naka-MS Word, nasisira yung format niya. Yung ibang pictures, hindi ko na siya makita. So I need it to be in the PDF format. Okay? So again, you compile your pictures for the answers sa MS Word but save it in PDF format. So I'll be publishing now the activity. Can you look at your Schoology account and then you will see there the activity number 1. It's uploaded as assignment. So ganito, ipakita ko siya sa inyo. Wait lang. Share screen ako. So ganito siya. Pero dili ta parehas og nawong sa course ha, kay I think ang sa inyong class ang makita lang ninyo kay ang materials, ang updates ug I think ang conferences. Mao lang na inyuhang makita sa inyuhang Schoology. But you can see there sa side the upcoming, meaning on Saturday, di ba I told you sa Saturday pa ang last day of submission of this activity. So meron kayong reminder dyan na you have to pass activity number 1 before 11:59 on Saturday. That's August 21, 2021. And then you will see the activity under some materials. Ayan. And then may dalawang folders kayo dyan. Yung sa orientation, you can see there the Memo 7, the Memo 8, your student handbook, and even the calendar of activities of the school, meaning yung schedule, kailan ang exam, anong mga holiday, and so on. So dito siya makikita sa prelim, and then you will see there the activity number 1. You just open it and you can download the copy of the activity number 1. So katong may mga printer, you can print the activity and just write the answer. Okay? And then hindi ko kasi siya makita dito sa akin kasi magkaiba yung format ng ating Schoology account. Ang sa inyo, pag i-open nyo yung activity 1, you will have a button there for submission. So, dun kayo mag-submit, i-attach nyo lang yung PDF file and submit it before the deadline. So, yan yung gagawin ninyo. Any question for activity number 1? Wala? Any clarification?
Excuse me po.
Yes,
Ma'am,
yes.
magpa-send po ako ng activity kasi wala pa po akong strategy.
Yeah. I-send na ko siya sa imo sa Messenger. Okay. Okay, wait lang. How about the others? Any question or clarification? Let's see. Oops, activity. So, until Saturday, kung wala ka pa ring Schoology, send mo din siya sa Facebook, sa Messenger. Pero kung may Schoology ka na before Saturday, 11:59 p.m., i-send mo na lang siya sa Schoology pag meron ka ng account. Okay?
Yes po.
Sige.
Opo.
Sige. You answer this one, and then, diba nag-post ko og groupings, no? Diba sa inyuhang, asan ako ito gibutang? Sa inyuhang updates, I have posted there. Let me share screen again. Mali ako ang ipindot. Wait. Okay. So sa inyong Schoology, I have posted there the groupings kasi next week we will start with the group activity. So class, please be informed na the activity is individual. So you have to submit your output before Saturday, on or before Saturday 11:59 p.m. Pero we will have our reporting next week, Monday, and the group 1, meaning this group 1, Mapiot, Matutina, Paskil, Rangke, Tahil, and Tingson, you are assigned to report your answers for activity number 1. So, gikan jud sa sinugdan hangtod sa conclusion, you will be reporting your answers. So, you have to collect your answers and you have to make a PowerPoint presentation sa inyong mga answers. You just have to meet with your group on how are you going to divide it. And next week, Monday at 1:30, we will have the presentation of your output group 1 sa activity number 1. Okay? And for those na dili mag-report, and actually para sa mag-report, after the reporting, we will have our quiz for the activity number 1. So you have to study also. Okay? Sa reporting, since participation and recitation is included in your grade, I need everyone to report. Meaning you divide na lang the report among yourselves, but I need to hear the voice of everybody. Okay? So kung 6 mo kabuok sa grupo, i-divide na lang na ninyo sa 6. Any question before I'll give the time for you to answer the activity? Wala. Okay. Let me